Deep in the mountains, near Lincoln, Montana, there once stood a tiny shack. No plumbing, no electricity, just a hand-built cabin, 10 feet by 12, surrounded by pine forest. From this remote place, a man waged war against the modern world. He did not use armies or speeches or protests. He used bombs. His name was Theodore John Kaczynski. The FBI would call him the Unabomber. But before the manifesto, before the terror, before the wilderness, there was a boy genius with a gift for numbers and a heart full of silence. The child prodigy. Ted Kaczynski was born in 1942 in Chicago, Illinois, to second-generation Polish Americans. His father, Theodore Sr., worked at a sausage factory. His mother, Wanda, was a former teacher with a sharp mind and fierce discipline. From an early age, Ted was different. At just 6 months old, he was hospitalized with a severe allergic reaction. His mother later claimed the isolation traumatized him. Ted was walking before other toddlers, reading by age 3, solving math puzzles while other kids were still learning the alphabet. One of his teachers called him brilliant but strange, like he was always half present. At age 9, his IQ was tested at 167, higher than Einstein's. Ted didn't play with the other kids. He didn't want to. He lived in his own world, a world of books, numbers, and silence. He skipped 6th grade, a move that put him in classes with children 2 years older and far less accepting. He was bullied, alienated, and emotionally distant. By the time he entered high school, Ted was already proficient in calculus and chemistry. Teachers marveled at his raw intellect, but classmates remembered him mostly for his loneliness. Harvard and the Human Experiment. In 1958, at just 16 years old, Ted entered Harvard University. It was a staggering achievement, but not a happy one. He lived in Eliot House, in a single room the size of a closet. He rarely socialized. And in his second year, he unwittingly became a subject in a psychological experiment that would haunt him for life. Professor Henry A. Murray, a former OSS officer and a pioneer in personality profiling, was conducting a study on stressful interrogation tactics. Over the course of 3 years, Ted and other undergraduates were subjected to weekly psychological abuse. Participants were asked to write deeply personal essays about their beliefs, values, and aspirations. Then, they were subjected to hours of mock interrogations, insults, ridicule, attacks on character, all while being filmed. The intention was to break them down and study their responses. What happened to Ted at Harvard was not science. It was psychological warfare. Ted never mentioned the study by name, but his journals, written decades later, spoke of manipulation, betrayal, and an irreparable mistrust of authority. He graduated in 1962 with a degree in mathematics, cold, brilliant, and emotionally fractured. The youngest professor. After earning his PhD from the University of Michigan, where he won several prestigious math awards, Ted was hired at age 25 by UC Berkeley as an assistant professor. He was quiet, competent, and uncomfortable. Students found his lectures dense and inaccessible. Then, in 1969, after just 2 years, he resigned without explanation. He left behind a promising career. He would never return to academia again. Building a cabin. Building a war. In 1971, Ted moved to a remote plot of land in Montana, purchased with help from his brother. There, he built a cabin with hand tools, grew vegetables, and hunted rabbits. He kept to himself, almost completely. His journals from the time reveal a man desperate for silence, but increasingly outraged by encroaching technology. They built a road near my home. I could hear cars. This is an attack. I am being robbed of my peace. He began committing acts of sabotage, damaging machinery, cutting power lines, destroying logging equipment. But his ambitions were evolving. He began reading anarchist texts, histories of revolution, anti-industrial philosophers like Jacques Ellul. In the early 1980s, Ted reached a conclusion. Only violence could stop the machine. The Campaign of Terror. Between 1978 and 1995, 16 bombs were sent by mail or hand-placed in public areas. 3 people were killed, 23 injured. The victims were chosen not for who they were, but for what they represented. Technologists, scientists, geneticists, airline executives. The first bomb was sent to Northwestern University in 1978. On November 15, 1979, a pipe bomb partially detonated on American Airlines Flight 444, causing a sucking explosion and a loss of pressure. In 1985, Hugh Scruton, a California computer store owner, was killed when he picked up a package in a parking lot. In 1993, Charles Epstein, a geneticist, lost several fingers. The last victim, in 1995, was Gilbert Murray, president of a timber industry group. I act only as nature's servant. Civilization must fall. If I kill someone, I do so with a clean conscience. The FBI labeled him UNABOM, short for University and Airline Bomber. A task force of over 150 agents worked the case. The Unabomber left no fingerprints, no DNA, no direct communications, until he wanted to be heard. Industrial society and its future. In 1995, Kaczynski sent a letter to the New York Times and the Washington Post. If they published his 35,000-word essay, he promised to cease the bombings. The FBI was divided. Some feared it was a trap. Others saw a chance to spark a tip. The manifesto was published on September 19, 1995. The Industrial Revolution and its consequences have been a disaster for the human race. It was not the rant of a lunatic. It was clear, structured, and deeply philosophical. Kaczynski argued that technological progress strips humans of autonomy, leads to widespread psychological suffering, and ultimately renders people powerless. We are being reduced to gears in a vast machine we cannot control. His solution? A revolution, not political, but anti-technological, violent, ruthless, necessary. The Brothers' Dilemma. After the manifesto's publication, one man recognized the writing style: Ted Kaczynski. David had received letters from his estranged brother over the years, full of the same rhetoric, grammar, and structure. At his wife Donna's urging, David brought the letters to the FBI. They matched. Turning him in was the hardest thing I've ever done. But I knew, if I stayed silent, more people would die. On April 3rd, 1996, a SWAT team surrounded Ted's cabin. Inside, they found bomb components, hundreds of journal pages, and a live explosive device, ready to mail. Trial and prison. Kaczynski was indicted on 10 counts of illegal transport and use of bombs. His defense team planned to use an insanity plea. Ted refused. I am not crazy. I am a political prisoner. This is war. He pleaded guilty in 1998 and received life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. He was placed in ADX Florence, Colorado, the Alcatraz of the Rockies. From prison, he continued to write letters to journalists, to supporters, to philosophers. Ideas that won't die. Kaczynski took his own life in 2023 at age 81. But his ideas live on, studied by philosophers, debated in tech forums, shared on dark corners of the internet. The collapse of the system may be the only path to freedom, he warned. Some fear he foresaw today's world of digital surveillance, AI, and mass alienation. Others insist a message delivered through blood is forever tainted. Ted Kaczynski wanted to stop the future, but the future came anyway. He built a war from a cabin. He wrote a prophecy in wire and blood. The bombs are gone, but the questions still remain. Was he mad? Or was he a prophet screaming into the abyss? He said technology would erode privacy. It has. He said human life would become more controlled. It has. But he also said violence was the only answer. And for that, his ideas are chained to the blood they spilled. Ted Kaczynski wanted to stop the future, but the future came anyway.